Welcome everyone to today's Tech Talk. Today we're going to be talking about global applications, how to deploy them in Microsoft Azure, what are the different features that Azure provides for us to use them. This is going to be one of the most fastest ways to deploy your application, use global reach, multi-region, and redundancy for your global application. So in today's Tech Talk, we're going to be using Azure App Services to deploy our Node.js app, and you're going to be using Azure Cosmos DB to deploy our database using all the features that Azure Cosmos DB provides, from regional accessibility, RTO and RPO, using backups to redundancy. So, feel free to go on the link that describes all the details, how to develop the app, how to create resources and stuff. This is not a development tech talk. So we're going to be skipping all the prerequisites and all the node development part of it. We're going to move on to Azure Infrastructure Project. We're going to be discussing about how to deploy the Node.js app, how to automate the CI/CD using app service features, and how to use geo-redundancy. So now let's see how our application is designed. So our application contains two main resources, which is the app service that's consumed from the app service plan that's provided by Microsoft Azure, and the Cosmos DB multi-region resource. Our app is going to be accessed in two different ways. From our user, by our user that's going to be using it, and our developers who are supposed to be developing the Node.js code for it. And we have an automatic CI/CD. You're going to see it during the demonstration. It's going to be so easy to manage. And then our Cosmos DB database, embedded load balancer that sends requests to the available database or to both databases. And you can see this. So now, let's move on and create a Cosmos DB so we can go to our Azure tenant and look up for the resources. We're going to create our Cosmos DB. We're going to create a NoSQL DB now. We're going to create a separate resource group. Today is 12/9. We're going to create an account for our Cosmos DB. Great, so we're going to create the database in the West US. And use a provisioning throughput, and then the app service can be created in another region to show you how global this infrastructure can go with Microsoft Azure. We're going to apply the free tier since we're on demonstration, and here we're going to select two of the main features on Cosmos DB. The first one is geo-redundancy. So this means that Microsoft is going to create another copy of our database in a peered region. So we create it on West US. To get another copy, it's going to be automatically created on East US. The second feature, which is really important as well, is the multi-region rights. What is multi-region rights? Multi-region rights allows us to write to the two databases, West US and East US, in the same time. And thus, we make sure that our databases are 100% synchronized at all times. So we enable these, then we move on to the network part. As I explained first, this is not going to be the most secure option. We're just showcasing abilities to deploy and host applications. We're going to go for the public accessible database, and we're going to allow everything to access our database. But for anyone who needs more security, please go on and check the public endpoint and private endpoint options. For availability, and to make sure nothing is lost, entire RPO and RTO in our solution, we're going to set up the backup policies, and we're going to use geo-redundant backup storage. This way, we are sure that in case of global, regional outages, our backups are not lost, and we're going to be able to get our database back. This is the last point on creating our database, and it's mainly linked about security. So, Azure resources are secure by design at some point, some level. So databases in Azure, all databases in Azure have data encrypted at rest. And to encrypt that data, we're either going to use Service Managed Key managed by Microsoft, which is the preferred way for everyone, I guess, because it takes out all the headache to managing the keys, renew it and everything, or you can use your own. In our case, we're going to use Microsoft keys. I'm going to set up a tag. Just to remember what was this created for, then we're going to go on and launch the database query. Cosmos DB databases takes a bit of time, so we're going to take advantage of this, then we're going to move on to create the app service in the meantime. So we let this run. Then we're going to go and create the app. We go and create the Azure App Service. And on the Azure App Service, we're going to set up, deploy our application and everything. We look for App Services. Select it. And then we create this. We put everything in the same resource group. And let's keep our name. Azure App Services is like the best solution that provides you with the infrastructure on which you're going to deploy your application. So, it depends on which runtime you want to use. Sometimes it uses Tomcat or Apache web servers. Sometimes it uses like Nginx servers or anything. So in our case, we are using Node.js. So we are Node.js 18 to make sure that our infrastructure contains the Node runtime and you're going to be able to run it. And purposely, we're not going to choose West US in this case because our application is global. So we're going to choose East US. Our app service and database are in 2 different regions. So we're going to go on and create our service plan, which is the infrastructure on which the app is going to run. We're going to go on for the free tier. We're not going to be able to define deployment at this stage since we're on free tier, but we're going to do it later on. And as explained, everything is going to be public. No network security at this level for us. Monitoring, gonna skip that. But you know, Application Insights is a feature in Microsoft Azure that gives you all the monitoring solutions that you need for your application. Tag. And then, we're gonna hit the Create button. So now, we have one database Cosmos DB, one app service. What's in there for us is go on, deploy the application on the app service, and then the application is going to be up and running in no time. While this is running, we're going to go on and show you as we discussed first, this is not a development tech talk. It's mostly focused on Azure infrastructure, so we prepared for you today the branch and the repository to host the application, the Node.js application. But feel free to fork it if you want to replicate the case and stuff. But anyway, the Microsoft documentation contains all these details. And please refer to the description if you need any link, any other details. This application is going to be a to-do app. So our application is going to be a web app that gives us the ability to add and to complete some tasks. So our app service is up. We're going to go on and deploy our application. And this is the CI/CD part that we talked about. So, can you go to Deployment Center? I'm going to select that we want to hook this one to GitHub repository. I already have my account connected, but you should be able to authorize it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be able to select the organization, the repository, and then the branch. So what I'm seeing here is our database got created, that's great. I'm telling to Azure to connect to my repository, monitor a branch, which is the main branch. And what's going to happen in the future, whenever someone commits something to this branch, it's going to automatically trigger a deployment into the app service, and then my application is going to be up and running with the new and the latest version. So we're good to go. Let's save this. We're going to move on. So, now we're going to move on to see if our deployment started or not. So yeah, our deployment started. We're going to try to track it. It's going to run the build, the deployment task. So, from here, nothing is going to be done manually by us. Just going to wait for it. By applying to run the application to be deployed, I'm going to spare you this time, and we're going to go straight forward after the build deployment is done to access our application and test. So, here we go again. Our deployment is done. You can see it took around 4 minutes. It's really fast to deploy. Everything is fine. One last thing we're going to do before using our application is making sure we are able to connect to our database securely. To do that, we're going to use parameters, which could be set up on the configuration menu. Go on the web app. It's already been prepared for you, but we can show you how to do that. So in these parameters, we can set up database credentials and anything else as environment variables so that it's never used statically and it's never seen for security. So we're going to set up these three parameters. And why these 3 parameters? It's because in our application code we did use those names. So if we change those names, we're going to change all the parameters. So environment host, environment authentication key, and environment port. From where are we going to get these values? These are values that you can get for the Cosmos DB. We're going to go to the Cosmos DB resource. And we're going to get these values from there. We're going to look for the keys menu. On the keys menu, you're going to have the array to access the database and then the primary key. So you copy this guy. It's going to show you the key. We're going to copy it. And you're going to go back to App Service and then set those values. As mentioned before, this has been done for you before getting back to this. So let's get to our app. All app services are using some Microsoft FQDNs with built-in SSL certificates. You can for sure use custom domains later on here and set it up. It's not the objective of our session today. And there we go. This is our app. It's our to-do list. We can add a new list. Let's say Tech Talk of 12, 9, 23, and we're gonna add it, and the item got added. So I've just updated to check the database. And this is how we set up a global application with all the features we discussed before. And that was it. Thank you for the session.